It's a wonderful day here for day 170, Thursday, June 18th, 2020, focusing on Psalms 78 through 80. Now, Psalm 78 is a maskil of Asaph, and remember, maskil is a form, speaking of enlightenment and wisdom, and so it's a psalm of instruction. In verse number 4, it says, "We will not hide them from their children. We will tell of the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done." And then the rest of the psalm spends the time telling of the story of Israel and Judah, recounting all of that, which fits very much with Deuteronomy, where Moses instructs the people to teach their children, the story of their ancestors, and never to forget that they were once slaves in Egypt who were rescued by God. Because through God's mighty act of, the Exodus and bringing them into the conquest of the Promised Land, this is their history. And it's important to remember your history, where you come from, in order that you celebrate the God who has gotten you there. So our lives, we have all sorts of ways in which we have been, privileged by God, that God has, given us birth, that God has enabled us to have breath and to grow up. And, now I've recently celebrated my birthday, just thinking that the gift of life is so easy to take for granted. It's easy to be very focused in on your own goals or your own, moment in time, but it's important to step back and remember that, where I am today is in a lot of ways a product of, systems that have come before me. It's a product of my ancestors, both my ancestors working hard and receiving grace that they didn't earn, for that. And so all of these things are, very much interconnected. And so it's important to remember where we come from and how we come into this place that we're at today. So may we be able to listen to, the ways in which that we have been privileged in this society, or the ways in which that we have been, challenged, and work together with the other people of God in order to bring about God's ways in God's community and make sure that people, the poor and the needy and the oppressed, are not forgotten in our day and time. Psalm 79 is a psalm of Asaph. I selected verses 3 and 4, which say, "They have poured out their blood like water all around Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. We have become a taunt to our neighbors, mocked and derided by those around us." This is another one of those sad psalms to hear. It's a psalm of the story of destruction of Jerusalem. Again, Jerusalem gets sacked by Babylon and the people get exiled. The Judeans get exiled away from, their homeland. And it's a very traumatic time for the people of God, the chosen ones of God, there in Jerusalem. And they get to witness some horrific things, people being slaughtered, the temple being burned with fire and destroyed, and then being, their leadership being exiled away from Jerusalem. And so it's easy to imagine that they do feel very sad. They feel taunted by other nations, that they feel very much depressed because things have not turned out the way that they expected. But the Jewish community is one of resilience, and we will see that the Jews that come from this take a lot of resilience in the midst of all the suffering and persecution that they have. And also our Christian story is one in which Jesus practices a lot of resilience even in the midst of unnecessary bloodshed against God's beloved. So that's important to remember, that whenever we suffer, it's an opportunity for us to grow and connect with the suffering of the people who've come before us. In Psalm 80, it's another psalm of Asaph, and I selected verse 19. "Restore us, O God of hosts, let your face shine that we may be saved." So when we are in persecution, We don't just have to sit and accept it. We can call out to God. It's a very natural human response, and especially a faithful response of believers, right? We want God to show up. We want God to help. In our times of trouble, we ask for prayers for those who are sick or in the hospital. And we want to know that not only God is with us, but to feel that through other people and the actions of the world around us. And so we hope that through all of this, that we can see signs of God interacting in our lives, of God showing up and giving us little messages to know that I am there with you, I'm present there, that I have endured suffering through the cross, especially through Jesus' death and resurrection, and that God knows where we are at and is not going to abandon us, even though God may feel hidden and absent at the time. So that's the note that I leave you on. As you might feel overwhelmed and that God is absent, that your suffering is too great, that the history of your past has been a history of persecution and suffering, know that God is with you and God blesses you even in the midst of that. The blessings may not look like material wealth in this day and time in this life, but know that there are other Christians like me who are out there who support you and love you and want to help. So may we journey on this journey together and remember that we never suffer alone, though our suffering might be isolated at times. So love, peace, and blessings from God unto you.